This conference will now be recorded.
Everybody can hear me okay? Great. All right. Welcome to week 3. You've done a lot of work so far, and I've reviewed a lot of your work, and you're all doing pretty good. Uh, Today, of course, this is what this week looks like, week 3. We have our live session. This week, you're going to create an identity package and color palette, and that's really the only thing you're doing for the week. As always, you're going to post it to a discussion and provide some peer feedback, and then finalize it all by Sunday. So it's a little bit of a take a breath week, but you still have some stuff to do, and we're working on color this week, which is the big thing. So um, let me go back here. Any questions about what's going on this week? What's due? No? All right, I'll keep moving along. All right, can you guys identify the logo just by color? How about this first one? What's that? Dustin gets it. MasterCard. All right. How about this one down here? What's that? Burger King. Dustin with the speedy typing skills. All right. A lot of these you can recognize. How about this one up here? Starbucks. Sharon got it. All right. Right here. This is a student's best friend on campus right here. Dunkin' Donuts. All right. Yeah, you can see a lot of these. There's Target, Burger King, FedEx, Windows, Mobile, Subway, T-Mobile. You can see how the color really helps identify the brand. And that's really why we put this branding assignment into color theory, because it's such an integral part of branding, color. If you looked at your presentation template, looked ahead, you saw what's coming up a little bit. You're going to do a color exploratory. And there's a video that shows you exactly how to do this page of your presentation. This is Miranda's sample. In the generic one, these are all black, but you're going to put your color in there and explore what are the color relationships to your assigned color. Now, this is not to say this is how you find a color palette. This is just part of the process. So once you do that, you're going to design an identity package using your logo, adding color, and explore different options, design options. When you get them all sort of figured out, you're going to document it in a color palette like this. And this is another page from your presentation template. You're going to put in the red, green, and blue values, the hex value, the CMYK values, and the Pantone number. I would always start with the Pantone and work my way backwards, because the Pantones are the limited one. So your goal this week is to design this identity package and come up with the color palette for your brand. The levers that you use, as I've said before, are hue, saturation, brightness, and temperature. So starting with your assigned color, can you go with a different hue, maybe complement, desaturate it, change the brightness, darken it up, or change the temperature slightly, have warm, cool colors just coupled with a cool color. Your overall mission is to make your assigned color be the hero and sort of stand out. Does that make sense? Any questions about this so far? Easily got it. Can you use our color and a lighter version? Yes. In fact, if I go back here, this is from a student project. So this was his assigned color, and he used a darker version, but you could use a lighter version. He used the complement, and then I think he took a darkened version of the complement as well. So there's all kinds of strategies to how you build your color palette, and we're going to talk about some of those tonight. When you get inspired by color, you can look at all kinds of things. Like you can go out into nature and see what there is. You can look at great images like great photographers and see. What I want you to do from now on as a design student is look at color palettes all the time. You'll see them everywhere. This is the work of Annie Leibovitz, great photographer. Look at fashion. The fashion industry is full of color trends. So you're going to look at those. And you're also going to look at great artists like Matisse. Matisse said, when I put colors together, they have to join a living chord, like a musical chord or harmony. So what's he talking about? Well, putting colors together is like creating a chord in music. It actually sort of elevates beyond the individual parts. It makes sense because music is vibration and color is light vibration. So here's some work by Matisse. Matisse, an incredibly prolific artist, and did these beautiful, lived in the Mediterranean for a while and did these beautiful, vibrant colored paintings. We all remember Matisse. And then we have Andrew Wyeth. This painting by Andrew Wyeth is a totally different palette than Matisse, right? Andrew Wyeth lived in New England, and this is a painting he did of his next door neighbor called Christina's World. Has everybody seen this painting before? Sharon has. Well, it's kind of a famous painting, but it has a very sort of muted, somber color palette from New England. This is where Wyeth was. If you look at this painting, though, carefully, and you see the grass here, this is painted on a piece of board, and he kind of scratched with his paintbrush into this to create this grass. But there's an incredible variety of color. There's greens and orange, red, yellow, blue, all in this field of grass, but very subtly used as opposed to Matisse. You see that? As always, I encourage you to turn on your microphone if you are in a quiet place so we can all just talk. All right, this is a painting by Bierstadt. Bierstadt was a German immigrant, came to America in the mid 19th century, and then went out west and did these amazing paintings of the American West. This has this sort of luminosity to the glow, to the sun coming through the clouds. And these paintings are of actual scenes in the West, and it really inspired people to settle the western part of the continent. Here's Gauguin. You've heard of Gauguin? Gauguin was a bank teller until the age of 40, and then he said, I'm going to be a painter one day. And he went out and moved to Tahiti. These are some of his paintings. If you look at these floorboards that are sort of in the muted sunlight, incredible color here, lavender, orange, pink, yellow, blue, all in these floorboards. There's an incredible color palette that conveys the sort of shaded sunlight of this floorboard. And this vibrant yellow and how those figures kind of pop out from that background. So look at paintings, look at art, look at fashion, look at marketing. When you go to the grocery store, you're going to see color palettes everywhere. You are now a student of color for the rest of your life, as am I. I'm learning all the time too. So what can you do for inspiration? Well, if you play video games or you watch movies, you'll see color palettes in action. They create moods, they create feelings. When you see that thing glowing green in the corner of the room in your video game, it's something you probably don't want to go too close to. So just to think about that. So for this assignment, you're going to use 5 colors, and I want you to use 5 because that's a typical kind of color palette, minimal. No white, no black. Your assigned color plus 4 others. The reason I say no white, no black is because this is color theory, and I want you to really think about color and how this relationship works together. What kind of relationship do they have? Your assigned color is the hero, and how do the other colors sort of support the hero or fit around it? It's just like a family. Which one's the black sheep? Who's the wild one? Is there some that are more pastel and sit in the background and others that are more foreground and pop out in front? Uh, Using hue to create some contrast. You want to create a little bit of contrast. And you can use hue, you can use temperature, but you always want to make sure that your assigned color is the hero. I would say it's Beyonce, and the others are Destiny's Child. So, hierarchy, you've heard this term hierarchy in design, and typically it means like the biggest thing on the page is the most dominant, right? The most important. But in color, we have hierarchy as well, and it's not necessarily the biggest thing on the page, right? In this case, this is a piece by Jessica Hische, fantastic type designer. It says "Good morning" in this beautiful steam, and the coffee cup is clearly the focal point, but it's not very big related to everything else. It's the color contrast that makes it pop out. That kind of contrast can create drama, create a focal point. Using dark and light and single color really creates some drama. Again, value, that's the other, brightness and saturation. You can use that to create contrast too. This is a fan art of The Shining movie poster. Experiment, like before you get to your final color palette, you're gonna do a lot of options. You're gonna work your business card, letterhead, and envelope that you're designing this week, and you're gonna figure out what works and what doesn't. You may change several times, and that's why I say only document your colors toward the end after you've had some time to play with them and get familiar with them. And you want to make it interesting. You want to have some contrast. You don't, some people say, well, I wanted a monochromatic color palette. And monochromatic color palettes are okay, but you're in color theory. So experiment, have some fun. Try things you never tried before. I will guide you as you go along, but the timidity is the worst thing. Go for it. These are, again, work by Jessica Hische. You can see this is sort of almost like a split complementary palette, but it works quite well. This is a poster for Matilda, the musical. If you're familiar with the story of Matilda, she had these sort of magical powers that allowed her to sort of rebel against the gray blackboard world that she lived in. And that's exactly what this poster does with the contrasting colors. You can create a color palette that's so pervasive that actually white ends up popping out in this case. And we use colors to organize things, to keep varieties. They have different flavors, different varieties of things. If you look at this line of soda bottles, they do this wonderful thing of repeating the same elements but changing the color so it creates all the variety. So the type is very similar in each, and the logo is the same, but then the color variety really makes it stand out. Same thing with these wines, they're repeating similar elements, but the color ends up being the difference. Coffee, these varieties of coffee, this soft black color for the bags actually create this wonderful backdrop for these bright, vibrant colors for Madcap coffee. When you get done and you figured out what colors you want to use, you want to get your Pantone numbers. Figure out what the Pantone is, and then work backwards to get the RGB and the CMYK values. And like I said, hue, saturation, brightness, and temperatures. Those are the levers. That's what you're using. You want to create, and we'll go over this more in depth, but you want to create an overall look and feel that matches your brand. When you look at your color palette, you should also look at your keywords and see if they match. Here's another sample. This is by Lure Design here in Orlando. They do some beautiful work, but this sort of complement yellow and violet purple, but then with this soft green as well, kind of creates a really interesting palette. Here's another one by Lure. This is like pink and orange. We wouldn't think, sort of an analogous a little bit. go well together. There it is again, pink and orange. Contrasting hues, just another sample. So make something beautiful, make something interesting. Light and dark, again, are your friends, so you can use those to create contrast and hierarchy. I love this poster by Jessica Heesh. It uses this black, just seems to really pop with all this vibrant color in the background, and she did a fantastic job creating a gradient that is essentially from orange to blue, which are complements, and yet it really doesn't go to mush in the middle. She's managed to make it work. Your logo may have to work on a dark background, so you may create a inverted version of it. And make sure you've got the RGB and CMYK colors worked out. This is the RGB. This is a bad RGB version of the Target logo. This is the correct color. Can you all see the difference in the color? Yeah. So it's like you don't want to take out your credit card with this color because that's not right. There's something off. Yeah, the right does seem darker, but it's a more accurate color. I got this from the actual graphic standards. Yes, and you're going to use Pantone. All right, so let's talk about identity packages. Sorry. An identity package is a weird term because it's not a package. It's actually business card, letterhead, and envelope, a group of things that you're going to use to establish your brand. Here's some student samples. So business card, this was for Peacock Jelly Beans, and you can see it has all the information. We're going to go over all the details on this. When we talk about identity, it's different than brand in the sense that identity is really sort of the expression of the idea. Brand is the idea, and the identity package is kind of like what it looks like. So when you go to, for instance, Best Buy and you see that blue polo shirt and they're wearing khakis, you know they work there. You see the sign. The consistency of the color sort of conveys something about the brand, and you start to feel it. This is a project by Pentagram, and they did Bobby's Burger Palace. You can see the logo kind of looks like a burger. And then in the store, there's a color palette being used throughout. Color palette in the logo, color palette in all the packaging and those elements, color palette on the business card. When you start to build that consistent color palette, it starts to feel consistent, like a brand that you could relate to. Here's another company. Now, if you see all these different elements, this is a presentation template, these are banners, this is a signage inside, a billboard, and a printed piece. They're all different, but they're all related. They have what I would call family resemblance. And it comes from not just the color palette, but also sort of the way the graphics are used. There's a gradient, there's these arrows and bold shapes. Sometimes they're used as negative shapes, sometimes they're positive, but somehow it all ties together and starts to feel like a family. Here's another example of Bespoke Trading Company, and you can see in this case they're using a sort of muted palette, some graphic elements like this wax seal and the kind of type they're using, and muted photography to create a consistent look. Does this make sense to people? Any thoughts on this? All right, I'll keep moving on. All right, so if you think of your brand as a person, there's different brands that have different personalities. How does it look? You know, does that color palette match the personality? If you look at all these people, do you know which one of these people went to jail? Nobody knows. Yes, Dustin got it. Martha Stewart. Yeah, Martha Stewart. And the way she's overcome that issue is she's consistent. She's consistently the lady who makes nice cupcakes. She's your neighbor down the street who would help you out and teach you how to make something. But she's also a powerful woman in charge of a billion-dollar media company. And she knows what she's doing, so she's kept her brand consistent. She doesn't talk about going to prison, doesn't get into details about it, doesn't complain, doesn't say bemoan that she was unfairly targeted or anything. She just moves on with her brand being what it is. All these people like Richard Branson and Jay-Z and Michael Jordan, they all have a sort of momentum with their personality that gives them consistency. So, how do you create this for yourself? Well, you're going to look at graphic elements and color palette and typography and all these things that you've been sort of working on to create what we call touch points. When you see this brand, these four elements of the company logo appear in different forms, like they have some patterns, some textures, some paint colors that bring it together, make it feel like one brand. This is another pentagram project, Republic Records. So they use these stripes, it looks like a flag, but they use it consistently throughout with the black color. It creates bags, hats, website, pulls it all together. All right, here's Lucy's Fried Chicken. Now, when you see this logo, what kind of place do you think Lucy's is? And would you eat there? Yeah, family place, huh, Sharon? A little bit of fast food, maybe. Dustin says, fast food, maybe. You would eat there if the parking lot's full. That's a good guide for whether a restaurant's good. Modern, all right. Easily explain modern. What makes it feel modern to you?
I found that this logo looks a little bit more modern because of the logo font. We see this more nowadays with skate shops and more reoccurring logos that appear in malls, and it kind of brings a family vibe, but it also draws in the younger audience as well.
Yeah, well, it's certainly well designed, and I think that's what makes it feel a little bit modern. The style of this script is a little more old-fashioned. The fried chicken words definitely look a little more contemporary. But it's a carefully crafted logo, so it does have that going for it. Here's the neon sign. Now, what do you think? Cassie says it looks retro. Yeah, nostalgic. Yeah, that's how I feel. It looks retro and nostalgic. And yeah, so Cassie'd eat there even after you saw the neon sign. So
Because
retro.
of the song I eat there.
Oh, okay, especially. Well, now when I see this neon sign, it makes me think of pinup illustrations from the 1940s, like from World War II era, which is very nostalgic. It's a little scanty, scantily clad, but it's not anything I wouldn't want my kids to see. And it's a little kind of fun and playful. And honestly, if you're going to eat fried chicken, you've got to be fun and playful because you don't want to, because if you really think about it, you're not going to eat fried chicken. It's not good for you. Yeah, Rebecca thinks it looks like Las Vegas. Well, kind of, but it's still got that retro feeling. And I think retro works for restaurants because people have a universal sort of belief that food used to be better than it was. We all have a memory of, like, grandma made the best cornbread, or grandma knew how to do it. Mom's casserole was the best. Yeah, Dustin, it creates the experience of the past. So it sparks your imagination a little bit. I think it's successful in that. Here's the rest of the elements. So there's the menu. And you can see, yeah, it is contemporary, but it has a retro feel. Cool little son of logo egg here. So which came first? I don't know. Chicken or the egg? There's the logo. Pies are $27, so it's pretty good food, I guess. Strength through consistency. That's what it's all about. All right. So when you work on this project, you will be using this template, and there's a video showing you how to use it, how it works. You're going to create letterhead, business card, front and back horizontal, front and back vertical, and an envelope. And all these guides and things on here are on a layer that you're going to turn off when you do your design. They're just there to guide you. And this template is all set up as an actual number 10 envelope. So if you ever have to design one, you have the template now to do it. This piece here is if you wanted to show the inside of the envelope, but actually what this could be is you could print it out on your home printer and assemble an actual envelope if you wanted to do that. It is not necessary for the assignment, so you can ignore this if you want. It's there for your reference. So you're going to do envelopes, business card, and letterhead. That's it. Your goal in doing this is to coordinate it all and establish an image for your brand, express the spirit and personality. You want to look at your keywords as you look at this stuff and say, is this does the color palette match the keywords? Does the look and feel match the keywords? You want to avoid fads. Don't do anything too crazy. You're trying to get a way to establish your look. Sorry, we're having a heck of a thunderstorm here right now. So let's look at some examples. All right, this is an architect. Now I want to point out some cool things they did here. So the letterhead has the logo. That's the dominant thing on the page, right? There's a little bit of info here, and the rest of the info is neatly organized at the bottom. They put little vertical lines to sort of hold it together. But there's nothing in the middle of the page. You can leave it sort of blank because a letter is going to go on there. And it's simple and discreet. Now they printed this flood color on the back, which is a very nice touch. I had a client I recently did that for, and it looks great. The envelope has the logo dominant in the upper left. The return address is most likely on the back flap, but it needs to be on there as well. For their business card, they did a horizontal big logo. The person's name is in red, so it kind of highlights, and their title. Those are the big important pieces of information. The rest of the information is clumped together neatly out of the way, so you can find it if you need it. But this is really what you want to focus on, who the person is and what their title is. So logo first, name and title, and then all the rest of the info. And this is like a note envelope, I think. Here's another one, another architect. So this Finkel and Williams has this little yellow logo icon, and they actually did it as a blind emboss at the bottom, which is kind of a cool look. The information is at the top in this case, sort of organized there. I think this might be the web address down here. The envelope, they did this sideways envelope, which is okay, but a flood color, as long as it's light, so you could print black on it, because that's what you do with envelopes. That works. And the business card, they did a blind emboss, so it kind of eats up a portion of the card, the logo on one side and all the info on the other, which is, again, something that's allowed. Rebecca, yes, we are making up the address and names. You can give yourself the title of CEO of the company, or you can make it up. Some of the students like to use celebrities. I have one, the first one I showed you, she had Johnny Depp as the CEO. So as long as you provide all the information and make it work from a design standpoint. Here is a bunch of collateral for a place called Bone Daddies. Now, what do you think of this place? Would you eat there? Sharon, you'd eat anywhere, Sharon, I have a feeling. Yes. Zeasley said no. All right, Zeasley, tell us why no. All right, Dustin, I gotta ask. Okay, go ahead,
Sorry.
Zeasley. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, you've been pronouncing my name wrong. It's Zezuli.
Zesley, all right.
And also, sorry. And it just looks a little bit chaotic to me. You can't really just see what you want. There's something always overwhelming. There's logos and icons filling over the text, and it's just a little bit cluttering to me.
Yeah, okay. Well, yes, from a design standpoint, it is a bit chaotic looking. Dustin, I gotta ask you, where are you in the world? Thomasville, North Carolina, near Lexington. Lexington known for barbecue. All right. So, are you in evacuation order time over there? You're further up country, upland, mid-state. All right, so you're good. Uh, yeah, so the chaotic look you're talking about is actually sort of this primitive art style that really relates to the style, the South, the old South. To me, this looks very kind of deep South looking, and as a result, that sort of provides some credibility for a real barbecue. I would say it's like if you see a barbecue place and they don't have a wood pile outside, then drive on past. Is that true, Dustin? Yeah, you got to see the smoke coming out. True that. All right. So I think this is actually successful branding, and it's making me hungry just looking at it. All right, moving on. This is a beer company, Swing Beer. What does this look like to you? Alicia, yes, I'll just go back a minute. So Alicia, yeah, this does remind me of New Orleans. Old school New Orleans. That's exactly what I was thinking too, yeah. All right, so Sharon, yeah, this is Swing Beer. It makes you think of the circus, right? So this is pretty well designed and branded, but it's kind of, the brand is off. Like to me, beer is not about the circus. Unless it was like cotton candy flavored beer, which I would really not like. So you can be branded, but the wrong brand. All right, Kate Peters Photography. Can you tell me about her? Not much, right? So this is well designed, but it's not really branded. Uh, this logo is kind of interesting. It's like little folk coming into focus or something. And they use the KP as a pattern. So there's some interesting elements, but it doesn't tell me a lot about this brand. But what kind of photography does she do? All right, here's Carthage Stoneworks. What can you tell me about them? What's the feeling of this brand? Rock, yeah, they work on rocks. Earthy, old school, grit, yes. Old school is probably a good association for Stoneworks, right? Because we have a feeling like Craftsman used to be better in the old days. It's a bit of a retro feeling. Yeah, there's some industrial aspect to it too, I agree. So it conveys some, yeah, made by hand. So those are positive associations with this brand. They've got this consistent little red stamp. They've got two versions of it, but it does have an old school look that I think is effective. Even the photography using black and white instead of color helps that. Here's a dentist. What's the feeling from this dentist? Dental Works. Deceiving. Fresh, yeah, I'd say it's fresh. There's some positive things to that, yeah. Some people have a aversion to yellow when it comes to a dentist, but I think overall the palette kind of pops a bit and makes, yeah, this color makes me think of mouthwash or something. They're trying to make it fun, yes. And one of the things they're doing is the type looks very kind of serious, but the messages are funny. There's a bit of tongue in cheek, so to speak, irony going on here. I think it's a cool idea. I'm not sure that a funny dentist is a good thing, or fun. Maybe I'm old school. I think a dentist should be serious. So kind of works. All right, business card. When you look at the templates, and I go over this in the video. You got three lines, three borders, as it were. The middle one is where the business card gets cut when it's final. The inside line is what we call the safety, type safety. It's where everything should stay inside that margin so that it doesn't get cut off by accident, because the cutter bounces around a bit and it could cut in a little bit or cut out a little bit. To prevent it, colors from not reaching the edge all the way, you bring all the way out to the bleed, what we call the bleed edge. So if you had a flood color on this card, you would bring it all the way out there. And that way the printer has a little leeway when they print it, when they cut it, to not go outside the edge. When you look at business cards, they could have all this stuff on it, but you really wouldn't put all that. You have to decide what's really important. All these things could be on there, but typically it's the person's name and title. Those are the most important. Their company name, which would be in the logo, and then address, phone number, email, web address. Those could be smaller information down below. Keep the type simple. Try to keep it simple and work delicately into adding stuff. Holy cow, this is quite a storm, sorry. Letterhead, 8.5 by 11, same thing with bleed, trim, and safety. Don't put a big 10% logo in the background. You can leave it blank in the middle because that's where the letter is going to go, and you're going to add a letter to your stuff to make it look real. The envelope, nothing goes up here because that's where the stamp goes, and nothing goes down here because they put a barcode on the envelope at the post office. If you design something here, they will just put a white sticker over it. The back flap, sometimes you can put the return address on the back flap. This one is a pointed flap. There's also a square flap. The letterhead should only get the logo, the address, the phone number, and the web address, not a person's name and all that, and title. And the envelope gets less. It just gets the logo, the address, maybe the web address if it works. So here's some other samples. So this one, the business card is actually die cut into a balloon shape, which is kind of fun. But you can see they've got this craft paper as kind of a consistent element throughout. Lucky Bucket Brewing, and they've got this kind of retro wax seal logo, but they're using kind of retro ribbon, orange flap on the envelope. This one uses these kind of interesting arrow-shaped die cut, a gray paper with this bright yellow color sort of popping out. And these business cards I thought were kind of cute and decorative, interesting pattern. Capture Studios, that they put their logo type on the front and their logo icon on the back, which is kind of unusual. They've got a pattern there. Patterns are really helpful, so you can use patterns. They put the info vertically down the side of the letterhead. And then this one, Charleston Naturally. Charleston is a beautiful place, soft bay, gentle water, you know. So these lines sort of feel like the water in the bay. The logo is actually looks like a leaf, but it also looks like a crane, and it's actually two leaves in the shape of a crane. The soft green color sort of gives it a natural watercolor feel. And then these waves, they put them vertically, and now they look like seagrass. The business card itself is blind embossed very nicely, and it feels like something you'd find on the beach, right? All right, I'm going to show you a student sample. So there's Chase's project, Mount Sapo soap. And this storm is really raging right here. So if my power goes off and I'm cut off, you're going to have to watch the video from last time. But all right, so black and white color logo. You're getting to that final stages. The exploratory, looking at the color relationships, and then he created a color palette. Now, he added white. This was sort of early on in the curriculum, and I since have forbade people from using white, but he used white. Now he went with a complement and a tint and a sort of cooler or warmer tint, maybe. It's up to you what you use. You can do any color relationship you want. Here's his business card, big name and title, small information, logo on the back. Letterhead, logo is prominent. Put an actual letter in, and signature and there. And so he has sort of a ghosted back icon there. The envelope, you don't need this inside piece, but there's the logo and return address, who the letter is going to. There's a stamp in the template, and this barcode is also in the template. So when you get it all done, you're going to put it in a Photoshop mock-up that looks like this. There's a couple different versions. You just have to use one. It's a lot of fun because it looks like it's all been printed and stacked up neatly for a photo. Any questions about this assignment? There's the template. It's an Illustrator file. Now, this Illustrator file, each one of these elements is its own artboard. So it's made to match perfectly with your InDesign template. So if you use this artboard and you use your template, it'll all work together. All right, Dustin asks, so do we have to use all 5 colors in the final product? No, you don't. You should have 5 colors because when you're going to do your package design, you may use them. And you want to have, part of it is figuring out the relationship between the colors. So maybe 2 or 3 of the colors are really prominent in the identity package, but then all 5 get used in the package design. So I would like you to use more than 1 color in your designs, at least 2, possibly 3. If you use all 5, that could work really well. So think about using color because that's what this class is about. Any other questions? All right, we're done a little early. As always, if you have anything to show me or any questions, you can catch me at noon on Wednesday for the midweek critique. I'm open to discussion as well as looking at work. So if you're able to be available at noon, that's great. I'll try to keep doing video critiques of the discussions. This last one, I had a little trouble uploading it, so sorry I got in kind of late. But I look forward to seeing your work. I'm going to end the recording now.